Hello and welcome to Designers at Home. I am Mark Weaver. I hope everyone's had a great week and I thank you for joining us this morning. We're going to have a fascinating conversation with Darren Franks, who is the president of the Southern California chapter of the ICAA. The ICAA, for those of you unfamiliar, is the Institute of Classical Architecture and Art. And Darren is going to be joining us shortly. So I'll give you a little bit of background on Darren. Darren's originally from London, and as a young man, he relocated to Los Angeles and has been here ever since. His company, Darren Franks Associates, is a company in which he leads a multidisciplinary team of artisans in the design and installation of decorative finishes, murals for a very elite clientele. He collaborates with top interior designers and architects and is commissioned on prestigious projects all over the world. His work is featured in books, and he regularly appears in Architectural Digest, Robb Report, Interiors, and several other publications. He is the current president of the ICAA, Southern California chapter, and he is an IDCEC-approved provider of continuing education courses on decorative finishes to the ASID members and is a graduate of UC Berkeley. So Darren is going to be joining us in just a minute. We always are wondering how long the internet is going to take to respond. Oh, here he is. So let's see if we can get Darren to join us now. So, this always takes a minute or two.
Good morning.
You are.
How are you?
So we connected.
Yes. Good to see you.
Great to see you too. I was just giving him a little bit of background on you.
I heard. And it was very nice. Thank you very much.
So telling him how wonderful you are. And I would like to just read a little something about the ICAA so that people are familiar with it and what the organization is about, and then perhaps you can elaborate a bit on this.
So, yes, please go ahead.
The ICAA it's a national organization. They have, what, 13 chapters?
There's actually 15 now. 15.
Okay. I know I've been a member of the Southern California chapter for years. It was founded in 2004, and their mission is dedicated to advancing the practice and appreciation of the classical tradition in regional architecture, urbanism, and the allied arts. The ICAA Southern California programming includes academic lectures, studio classes, private tours of significant residences that are rarely open to the public, as well as educational meetings. And these meetings could be held in artisan workshops, design office, or product showrooms. So their programs are really worthwhile, they're fascinating, and they're always held at very interesting venues. So do you want to elaborate a little bit on the ICAA?
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, we are, so our chapter is Southern California, and we're fortunate to have about 400 members now. And the membership is comprised of architects, interior designers, such as yourself, tradespeople, artisans, and also enthusiasts of this style of architecture. The word classical, it just tends to be associated with something which is highfalutin, a little out of reach, but we're very open to new members, and we just see ourselves as more of a foundation of architecture, which is just about the basic principles of quality architecture based on scale and proportion. And we come together to discuss and appreciate those types of that type of design.
Right. And when we talk about scale and proportion, these are all studies of classical architecture, but these are also principles that are practiced today in modern architecture and contemporary architecture as well.
That's correct. And it doesn't mean that these principles are only for classical architecture. They are they just make you feel human within a space. I think that's part of classical architecture, and why it succeeds is because it takes the human into consideration, and it makes one feel comfortable, and you can enjoy and appreciate an environment. And if you take those principles and apply them to other types of architecture, we would find that successful also.
Yes. So let's talk about why we should continue to get more people involved with this organization.
It's a very good question. I feel like it's unfortunately over the last 40 or 50 years, we haven't the schools haven't been teaching classical architecture at all, and it's been just completely skipped over. So our responsibility, and I'm currently a chaperone of our chapter along with our board, is to expose people to it and expose people to the practices and the principles, because we feel like it is an integral part of architecture and design, and it also adds a lot of value to a quality piece of architecture. If you look at the best piece of architecture, they're ones in which people tend to feel comfortable and enjoy that space, and it really enhances their experience within that structure. And we value that, and we feel like it's very important.
Yes, I think a lot of people are unaware. They can walk into a home, a public building, whatever, and there's an emotion, there's a feeling that you get. And that is done by creating spaces with like you mentioned earlier, proper scale, proper proportion. The Greeks were masters of this, and they created orders. So, it's like a dog. An animal or a dog will walk into a room and they'll circle around till they find the right spot. And I think what they're looking for is the right spot where the energy is good. And it's not just comfortable, but it feels right. And that's what's so important about architecture, and architecture that's well done, is that it creates spaces that are comfortable to live in, that are elevating, that elevate the spirit, that lift the spirit, that create beauty. And you may not always be aware of this by looking at it, but you can feel it. And there are spaces that we go in. There are great buildings that have been created throughout history, and you go in them, and there's just a magic the moment you walk in.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's also when you enter these spaces, you connect with them. You connect with past generations of all the people before you who have experienced these spaces too. And you're seeing something designed that was the best at that time that could be done. The best materials, the best. So it really enhances the experience you have within that space.
Yeah, and it's fascinating when you travel around the world and you see the great buildings that have been built over the centuries, and how these things are tourist destinations. Oh, and it's not just classical architecture, it's the same with modern architecture. But these are monuments that have been created, and people admire them today. They're copied today. If you look at Washington, D.C., the city was modeled after great buildings, great architectural elements. And a lot of federal government, state buildings are copied from classical buildings, classical
The Supreme Court, for instance.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Notre Dame. We almost lost it last year to the fires, and it just shows when it goes away or when it gets damaged, we realize it's as important as a human being. It captures, or it has such a wealth of connection to the soul of a city or a country. That's how important classical architecture is. We connect to it in a human way. And when we're within it, we can enjoy it and appreciate it as in our human form. It's designed for us. It takes the human into consideration.
Right. So you grew up in London, and I'm assuming that, there's just such great architecture in London. I'm sure that had an impact on you as a young man.
I think so.
So, is there
I just took my
anything?
kids to see the changing of the guard last year outside Buckingham Palace, which was
And how did they react to that?
thoroughly enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed it, especially
Well,
the B
it
features
certainly
hats.
isn't something they've been exposed to growing up in Southern California.
Certainly not.
No,
No, no.
no,
Even
Southern
though
California.
we do have amazing architecture here in Southern California uh, and the United States. We have a wealth of beautiful classical architecture,
Mhm.
homes and commercial buildings, and like the City Hall in downtown. I mean, these are fantastic buildings, and you know, they really hold their weight, and they're incredibly important from people who see them from around the world, but also to us to cherish them here.
Right. And they're signatures of the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, the ICAA has some wonderful programs. You know, they provide information and inspiration for students, teachers, practitioners, patrons of classical art and architecture. And can we talk a little bit about some of the programs that the ICAA has?
Yes, I'd love to. So we every year we offer about 10 to 12 lectures, and some of those are educational, and some of those just we bring in an expert from somewhere around the world who talks about a specific thing. It could be an architect from the UK or a fabric designer from Paris. Now, obviously, during COVID, we still have live lectures, but they're online now instead of
Right.
being in person. And actually, it's been a very interesting change. It's been quite successful. We have a huge amount of attendees at these lectures, and we have so we just had Timothy Corrigan 3 nights ago. He gave a live lecture using Zoom about chateaus in France, which he's done a lot of work in, and he's Timothy, if you don't know, incredibly talented,
And
famous.
that's his passion,
That
chateaus.
is his. That's
Yes,
one of his
yes,
passions. Yes, it is.
yeah. And he's
Upcoming,
a great speaker, by the way.
he is fantastic. He's incredibly
Yes.
charismatic and brilliant at his craft and presenting his himself. Then we have Richard Mannion, Southern California architect. We also do educational lectures. We've had one by a famed Egyptianologist who's given some fantastic um, lectures on the subject. We also do a lot of classes where we teach the Doric orders. Continuing education for some of us professionals. But I think the sweet spot of our chapter is our New Heights program, which is a program which is specifically made to introduce young boys and girls, junior high school and high school age,
Uh-huh.
to classical architecture and the allied arts, and that to me is that's our true passion.
I think this is an incredible program, and I think what you're doing is marvelous.
Thank
Let's
you.
talk a little bit more about
Yes,
this. It's
yes,
inspiring young people and exposing young people who really probably haven't had the luxury of traveling abroad or around the world to see and study some of the great structures around the world.
that's correct. So we have a program. Obviously, we're in the process of adapting it, and in February of next year, it'll be through Zoom 100% in LA Unified in some of the classrooms, which we really would like to expand into as many classrooms as possible. So we have teachers who will teach the orders, who will show incredible pieces of architecture from around the world. The young students will make molds of maybe a Corinthian capital element, or learn about maybe gold leaf or trompe l'oeil, or all these amazing things. And we've been doing it for 4 years now. It just blows them away. And also, what we're putting a new program together where we're going to be every year we'll have a competition, and at the end of the year, one of them will be awarded an award, and and they're also going to get a scholarship of perhaps $5,000, and maybe an internship with one of our local architectural design firms. That's the goal. So we've got very big plans for that.
That's wonderful. And how do you find that these young people respond to the exposure to classical architecture?
I just think they're just not aware. Yes, they're aware that we have this great architecture in the world, but to understand and to see it and to learn and discuss it firsthand, really, I really think it blows them away. And then they can realize that they can actually maybe work within this field and practice it. And it's connected to history. It has a rich history, and they could dive in and really truly connect with it. I think it really wakes them up to it. And so that's why it's so exciting to us.
That's a great point. Classical architecture is history. So we have the ability, we can go back and look at the beginning of creation by studying the Big Bang. And likewise, we can go back and study civilizations and cultures by looking at the architecture and artifacts of those eras.
Yes.
I remember going to Egypt, when I was much younger, and what a tremendous impact that has. I mean, to be standing in front of the pyramids, I remember my brother saying to me, we're standing in front of the pyramids at Cheops, and he says, well, what are you thinking? And I said, I don't know, I'm so overwhelmed. And I said, my first reaction is that, this is kind of silly, but I said, it doesn't look so big. And he jabbed me in the side, and he said, you're in the middle of the desert, there's nothing else around it. Of course it doesn't look big, but it's gigantic. But the experience, the emotion, the feeling of this is remarkable. And then from these elements, from architecture, from the artifacts that are found in tombs and places, we study cultures, we study their lifestyles, we know how people dressed, we know what types of food they ate, we can discover what types of, and this is relevant today, we can discover what types of diseases they had at the time. Mm-hmm. So, architecture is so important as a historical record.
Absolutely. Also, it's a gateway. You can physically, like going to Venice, Italy, you can actually step into a Renaissance painting or a beautiful, rich book of pictures. You actually physically can go there and interact and enter the architecture and experience it as one had done so perhaps 400 or 500 years ago, like the Duomo in Florence. You can, it's unbelievable. Now, what we do as an organization, see, we take that and we can help you see how you can learn about it and practice it in today, utilizing some of these tried and true practices, and you can implement them in your work as a professional today. And that's why we're here, and that's what we advocate, and that's what we push for.
And I'm a strong advocate. I always talk about how important travel is, especially for people who are studying architecture, because you see all these elements, you see things that have great cultural significance, and I make a mental note of these. I take photographic images of them, and throughout my career I draw on all these things for use in projects, and it's what makes them special and makes them unique. Mm-hmm. So there's just, you mentioned Florence. Florence is just a gold mine. It's just the wealth of beauty, and whether it's architecture, painting, sculpture, everything is there. So
how do you incorporate in your practice these classical elements and designs? How do you feel like you tap into that wealth and express yourself with that knowledge?
Well, that's a personal passion of mine. We work on traditional homes, we work on classical homes, we work on very contemporary homes. I'm currently working on a new, very modern home for myself, but a lot of the art and elements within the home will be classical. Mm-hmm. Greek, Roman pieces from Pompeii, and of course many of these are reproductions because the originals are not available. Yeah, and it's certainly not affordable.
It's also interesting to do I'm doing a home also for my family, and we're it is but we you can still utilize some of these classical elements in a way which is affordable. You know, it's just certain, if you give a certain nod to certain things, you can capture the essence of it in a certain way. Maybe it's the scale of something. You don't have to go all out and just go all it's cost prohibitive for most of us, some of these elements,
Right.
arches, cloisters, ceilings, and who knows, but you can still take this knowledge and express yourself within it, as a modernist, you could do that.
Yeah, I think the mixture of classical elements, classical art, sculpture with modern architecture is very exciting. I love the juxtaposition of the two.
Mm-hmm.
I've always loved that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing that used by a designer when I was in college, and I had a very strong reaction to that, and it's something that I've sort of developed over the years in our designs.
Yes.
So, you know, this organization has so many great programs. Unfortunately, you know, you're not able to attend them all, but many of these programs and lectures and so forth, they can see online, can't they?
You can.
Yeah,
We're actually launching a new website in October. And we're going to, in the last 6 months during COVID, we've actually done about 3 or 4 lectures per month. So of top-notch architects, designers, and practitioners. So you have this wonderful library, which is going to be available to members on our website. We even after COVID, which will end soon, we know. No, I mean not Trump soon. I mean soon, as in when it's over, scientifically. But and then we'll get back to do it. But we will continue doing the online lectures in addition to the in-person ones, which are a wonderful networking opportunity to meet up with peers and discuss and learn and share. But also we'll continue to do these online ones. Have been fantastic. But also on the website, we'll have the library, and we'll also have an upcoming calendar of events. And we welcome new members. We'd love to have new members join us.
Yeah. It's you know, you had mentioned that this week that you had Timothy Corrigan as a guest speaker, and I know you've also had Eleanor Schrader, who's a dear friend from UCLA. I lecture at UCLA in Eleanor's class, and she talked about icons of 20th century furniture. And that was a fascinating talk. Yeah. And I know that talk is available online. You also had London-based architect John Simpson, who's one of the leading practitioners of New Classicism. And New Classicism is a contemporary architecture movement that continues the practice of classical and traditional architecture.
Yes.
So there's just so many. There's drawing classes. They have classes learning how to sketch freehand. They have classes how to draft, how to draw classical elements. And these are taught by significant architects, people who are the top of their industry.
But don't be intimidated by those. I mean, you know, as you know, as well as I do, that it doesn't, you come in, you don't even have to know how to draw. You can still come in and learn. There's not like elbow patch wearing snooty people who are like trying to be better than they are. We have very open minds, and we want everyone to share and at any level. You don't have to be the top of your field to come in. The door's wide open, you know.
So can we talk about the drawing that is right behind you?
Oh, yes, this is by one of my artists, Paul Strong. He's a very, I love hands and feet are very hard to draw or paint. And I think he succeeds very well with that. We do a lot of trompe-l'oeil in my company, and he's our lead artist. He's incredibly talented. And I just like to keep things around me that inspire me. And I guess hands and feet he's top-notch hands and feet are inspirational.
That's great. You know, I want to get this book. The ICAA puts out this book called The Classicist.
Yes.
This is a publication they produce annually.
That's correct.
And it's an absolutely incredible, for those of you who would like to join this organization, I don't know if you can see it, this has advertisers who support the ICAA. There are drawings in here of great buildings. There's studies of them. Yeah. It's just a great publication. And these are, I save these, I treasure these. I put them on the shelf with my great art books. These are not magazines that you read once and throw away. They're great reference manuals. And you know what the ICAA has done, one of the great things they've done for people like me is that they have an annual event and an annual dinner. And it's attended by members. And I run into people that I haven't been in contact with for some time and perhaps have forgotten about. Architects, designers, people like yourself that have wonderful talent and do trompe-l'oeil and murals. And it's a great way of connecting with people. And all these people, it's not competitive. The great thing about it is that they're very supportive of one another. Mm-hmm. It's so refreshing.
It is. It is.
So I know in upcoming programs, there is a webinar coming up about house to city, creating new towns and cities in today's developing context. And there's one by Eric Oths, who's from Philadelphia, and he's going to be talking about the changing of American landscape and the design for solving urban problems. There's another one about gardens of the arts and crafts movement. Mm-hmm. One, how to hire a designer. And I know last month, this is wonderful. Last month, you had an event honoring the winners for the emerging excellence in the classical tradition.
Yes.
And Prince Charles was the person that made a very, very gracious introduction to this event.
He did.
And fantastic. He reflected on the significance of the collaboration between the ICAA and the Prince's Foundation and expressed his optimism for a future in which emerging talent will continue to be nurtured, and thoughtful in architecture and design will enrich communities and beauty in the places in which they live. That's great.
It is fantastic.
So did you have the opportunity to visit with him?
I did. We did a Zoom together, which was very interesting, and he's a great speaker. And we have had a relationship with his organization for perhaps the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, even before the early 2000s, when we became the ICAA, we were around about 20 years prior to that as a merger of two different organizations in classical architecture. So over that time, 40 years, we have created these incredible, we have nurtured these incredible relationships with like-minded organizations around the world. Prince Charles has a fantastic organization, and we share in his vision. It's very similar to ours in education. He's very supportive of John Simpson, who guest spoke late last year. They're very good friends, and so we're all interconnected. So we actually support his initiatives, and it's a lot of cross-pollination.
So before we run out of time, Darren, I'd like to talk a little bit about you, so people are familiar with you and your company, Darren Franks Associates.
Yes.
So tell us about some of the wonderful things that you do and create.
Well, I'm legally a paint contractor, but what we specialize in is the decorative finishes, the decorative arts, which would include trompe-l'oeil, murals, gilding, which is gold leaf. We also do all the French and Italian decorative finishes, from your Venetian plaster to your striés, glazes, and such. So I'm fortunate to work with a very good team where we create. We get to work with incredibly talented designers like yourself, Mark, and clients, and what we do is we help implement their vision for their home. It could be a Venetian plaster room or a Pompeian fresco. That's how we work. We get to.
And tell us about some of the really fascinating projects that you've worked on.
Well, right now, I'm about to head out to a job. It's a house where there's a lot of copper that has oxidized over the past 30 years. It's a very famous house on the beach, and we're going to be restoring the copper. So we're going to soda blast, sandblast the exterior, and then we're going to patina, put a brand new patina over the newly exposed copper. I'm also working on a home where we're doing a lot of very custom painted finishes throughout this large home in Beverly Hills. And we're working on a project in presently in Orange County, where we're going to be doing a milk paint on some antique doors using different waxes and a certain paint to give it a truly antique look. And we also do a lot of contemporary, but there's a whole range of things.
And so when you travel, Darren, is there a particular part of the world that you like to visit?
Well, actually, we like Italy and France. You know, we could go there again and again, but we were fortunate to go to Iceland last year as a family. I have two young children, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and we actually drove around the entire island over a period of 2 weeks, and it was just like being on another planet. That was incredible. I like that.
Oh, that's thrilling.
We saw there's black sand and there's icebergs and glacial parks. It's incredible. How about yourself? I know you like Italy too.
Well, you answered my question. My favorite place to travel is Italy, but I can't think of one place in the world that I've traveled so far that I'm not dying to go back. I love traveling to Asia. I'm looking forward in the next year or so, as soon as we can travel. I want to visit Japan because it's been many, many years since I've been there.
Yes.
I always love going to Italy. And of course, I love Italy and France and Great Britain because we do a lot of purchasing there.
Yes.
Of antiquities and so forth. So those are major destinations for me. But I do want to go back to Egypt. I think Israel, being in Jerusalem, was probably one of the most fascinating places in the world. If you've never been to Jerusalem, it's the history of civilization. It has everything. There's architecture, history, art, religion, it's just unbelievable. So
I'd like to go back to Marrakesh.
In Marrakesh, of course, sure.
There's a lot more, people are doing a lot more tadlak, which is a beautiful North African finish, and it's just a stunning finish. And I'd like to go back and take my family there. But also my son wants to go to Hampton Court. So we want to get lost in the maze in England. We'll spend more time in England. London's a fantastic city to enjoy.
It's such a great city. The people are great. So why did you want to become president for this Southern California chapter of ICAA? What was your motivation?
It's a very good question. I think I've been involved in it a long time. And what really motivates me and drives me within our chapter is obviously we're really passionate about classical architecture and the allied arts, but it's mostly the educational component and how fundamentally important some of the concepts and principles of classical architecture can influence you and your design decisions today. And I love exposing people to that, like these young students. And my passion, therefore, is expanding this New Heights program, where young students can open up and they can learn about this wonderful style of architecture, which is something, as we have both discussed today, where you can truly engage with it and truly connect with humanity from over the millennia in a very special, unique way. So there's a lot of things there, but education is, and you're a teacher too at UCLA. So education is such an exciting key component of what we're doing.
Yes, it is. So before we sign off, tell us, how do people become more familiar with the ICAA? Is it best through the website? How do they find out more about this wonderful organization?
Well, you can follow us on Instagram, which would be great, which is ICAA_SoCal. That would be really appreciated. And you can also, we are launching a new website in October, but if you want to see the antiquated existing website, you're welcome to. It's going to be updated. And that is, the national one is classicist.org. And our local one is ICAASoCal.com. And that's how you, and it has the calendar in there and all the upcoming events. And you can also reach out directly to us.
Great. And we also encourage everybody to check this out, and please join this organization and support it. How do people find out about you and your wonderful talents in your organization?
It's through my website, dfafinishes.com, and we show some of our work on there. And you can also you can send an email from there, and I'll be happy to speak with you about it.
That's great. I wish we this is so great, and I wish we could continue this, but our time is up, and I just can't thank you enough for joining us and sharing the ICAA with our listeners today. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you, Darren.
Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. So we hope this glimpse into the world of classicism will inspire you to explore further this beauty of this art form. So in our Designers at Home is going to be airing every other week from now on. It will be every other Friday at 10 a.m. And we can't thank you enough for joining us, for listening. In 2 weeks, on October 9th, I have an exceptional guest. His name is Jim Magny. He's one of America's greatest designers. He's a visionary, and you won't want to miss this conversation. He's a wonderful, wonderful talent. So, as I've said before, I'd love you to share our talks with your friends. They can join us every other Friday on Instagram. If they're not able to join live, you can go on our Instagram channel anytime and watch it. You can also go on our YouTube channel. It's under Mark Weaver and Associates, and we encourage you to share these with your friends. So from the wonderful world of design, I'm Mark Weaver, and thank you for joining me.